I want to do a brief meditation on a psalm today. And to set this psalm up for you, I've been thinking about this question on and off for a couple weeks. And I don't know, I'm just sharing some thoughts on the answer to the question or some possible responses to the question. And the question is, like, how do we go about loving people better? And further, not just that question, but why does God love us? And how can we go about even attempting to mirror the love of God in our relationships with other people? That's been a question that has been on my mind, and I have some thoughts, especially in light of what we're reading today. But if you've ever wondered, why does God love you, or whether or not God does love you, or how you can learn to love like God, perhaps something that we read in Psalms today will give you some insight on that. So I'm in Psalm 139. This is a pretty long psalm. There's 24 verses. I might get through all of them, but I might just stop. We'll just kind of go with the flow. And I'm going to read it kind of slowly. So I hope that wherever you are right now, you can kind of get in a prayerful posture as we read these words as we dwell on what these words are saying to us. So this is Psalm 139 out of my very beautiful alabaster book, Psalm 139. I think this is the NOT translation. O Lord, you have examined my heart and know everything about me. You know when I sit down or stand up. You know my thoughts, even when I'm far away. You see me when I travel and when I rest at home. You know everything I do. You know what I'm going to say even before I say it, Lord. You go before me and follow me. You place your hand of blessing on my head. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, too great for me to understand. I think I can stop there. So this psalmist, all throughout the psalm, talks about what God knows and how the knowledge of God affects the individual, and they're this particular individual. And I don't think the psalmist is trying to address the details of God or whether or not some of this stuff is true about God. I think it's more like, this is how I feel right now, God. I know that you're big. I know that you're bigger than me. And I don't know all the details of who you are, but man, it feels like you really see me right now. Right? And I think this is important for us to try to understand how we can even attempt to replicate that type of love. I think part of it is our ability to see people, and not just see people, but seek to understand people, seek to know their story. I heard somewhere, I feel like I read somewhere, like it's impossible not to fall in love with someone that you know. Or it's impossible to not fall in love with someone when you know their story. It was something like that. And it's so true. I understand that to be true. As I get to know someone, as I increase my proximity to someone, there's something that happens to my heart and my mind. And especially when my heart and my mind is open to this individual, that's key too. If my heart and my mind is open to this individual and I'm in proximity and I'm seeking to understand and I'm seeking to know this individual, I think love is just a natural byproduct of that. So the reason why God loves us so much is because God knows us more than we know ourselves. So there's even qualities about me that I struggle loving. And I'm sure there's qualities about you that you struggle loving. But God, in his infinite love, infinite grace, infinite mercy, sees all of what we are and loves us. And he loves us because he knows our story and he is in close proximity to us. He's closer than you think. He's always closer than you think. I love what Richard Rohr said. Richard Rohr said, the only thing that keeps us from God or closeness to God is the thought or the idea that we're far away from him or away from God. And I think that's so true. God is always closer than I think. Further, the love that he has for me is dependent upon his knowledge of me. So God knows me. And I think in some ways that could be a scary thing. Um, Maybe someone can be scared about the reality that I can't get away from your presence. In verse 7, he says, I can never get away from your presence. I can never escape from your spirit. In some ways, that could be scary for some people, but I don't know. I'm just thinking about my wife. I love that lady. I love that young woman, and I always want to be around her. I always want to be in her presence. And I think there's a similar posture here. This is communion with a lover. This is communion with a family member, right? And maybe for some people, saying a family member is triggering and not helpful. So ignore that part. Just think about something that you can always be around. Another example for me is being outside. Man, it's beautiful outside. I'm surprised I'm not outside right now. I was gonna make this video outside, but I decided to stay inside. But the skies are blue right now, and it feels good. The sun is shining. I can be outside all day. I can be in proximity to nature all day. I don't have a problem with that. And I think it's crazy to think about this, but I think that's how God feels about us, right? And there's something that love does. And because what I've heard about God's love growing up was the importance of, I guess trying to balance out God's love with God's wrath and his justice and his anger and his frustration with humanity, right? And I think God's frustration is important and his anger and his wrath is important. But I think we have to know the love of God before we know about the wrath of God. I think if we want God to remain someone that is pleasant in our reality, there's something there about embracing this unconditional love. And I think that love is enough to move mountains. That love is enough to take me from where I used to be to where I'm going. That love is enough. I don't need fear of, maybe at the beginning, and I love the proverb that says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And I'm learning that is the beginning of wisdom. It's not the end of wisdom. Maybe I have to know about the wrath and the judgment and the fear of God to maybe open me up to the possibility of God. And maybe that's not true for everybody. I think some people, they need to know about the love of God, the unconditional love of God, the unconditional attention. And I think that's a good way to translate love, unconditional attention. As long as I'm alive, I'm going to experience the rain. As long as I'm alive, I'm going to experience nature. I'm going to be able to see a sunset. And of course, there's variables that could affect that. I can lose my vision eventually. Like there's all types of things that can happen. But I think there's always going to be a piece of grace that I can celebrate and experience and find joy in. So all that said, perhaps if you want to love like God loves, then maybe you have to do the work of seeing others, being willing to know their story and hear their story and to seek to understand them, and further be in close proximity to them and maybe learn how to enjoy that. And I know this is hard in a lot of ways, because there's some people that I really struggle being around. I really do. But I don't know, there's some people that I struggled being around, a couple months ago, but now it's like, oh, you're growing on me. Like as I'm getting to know you more, as I'm getting to know that this is who you are. And there's some things that I wish were different, but you are who you are. And as I see that, as I know your story, I'm learning to appreciate who you are more and more. And I think this is what can happen when we're trying to embrace the posture of God, the posture that God has for us. We're trying to embrace that and bring that into our relationships with others. I love this psalm. I could have kept reading it. I can probably talk about it for an hour. There's some really good stuff in this. The way that it ends is often the way that people talk about this psalm. Search me, O God. I think that's an important part of our relationship with God, asking God to search me, make known to me something that I need to see, something that you see that I need to know about myself, so that I can grow in my love for myself, for others, for you, God, for your creation. And I think this is a psalm about self-awareness too, and we could talk about that for another hour too. So all of these things are gifted to us in these 24 or so verses in Psalm 139. But ultimately, I think we see maybe the background of why a God like the God that we serve can love us, because he understands us. God knows us more than anyone on the planet. And I may not have to say this, but I feel like I have to keep saying this on this channel. The pronouns that I'm using to refer to God are masculine, and they're masculine because the scriptures tend to be more masculine. But I am not saying that I cannot refer to God using feminine pronouns. That's not what I'm trying to say. I think God is beyond gender, but for whatever reason, these biblical writers wanted to articulate who God was using masculine pronouns. I mean, I say forever for whatever reason, tongue in cheek. I mean, God's going to meet you where you are. So if God meets you in a society that is mostly driven by men, of course, maybe you may see God as a masculine figure, right? So I think, yeah, this is I made videos about this in the past. So if you want to go back and watch those videos, please do. But like I said on in that video, I'm going to continue to refer to God primarily in a masculine pronoun. First of all, because I'm a man, I'm a man, and secondly, because like this is I'm kind of in this tradition. Like I'm a Christian pastor, and I'm grateful for what we have in the scriptures, but I'm also recognizing that there are limitations, and I hope that you see that too. I hope that you're able to recognize the spirit in these scriptures, but also the humanity. There is humanity in this, and I think it's important to recognize both as we're trying to translate these words into our reality today. All right, I'm talking a lot. Blessings to your day. May God touch you with his love today. May God grant you an opportunity to get to know someone in intimate ways, so that you may deepen your love for that individual. May God keep your heart and your mind open to those around you, so that love can indeed grow. Thank you for watching. Blessings to your day.
Life is really good. Why would I complain? Life is really good. Even with the rain, even with the pain, I count it all gain. 'Cause though I want the same